We're talking Ohio State Buckeyes today on Sharpen the Point. 2024, 14-2 national championship finally comes home for Ryan Day in his 7th season. Offensive coordinator change though. Chip Kelly heads back off to the NFL. Brian Hartline takes over. He was promoted from wide receivers coach. Heck of a recruiter. Hartline finally gets his chance. He's really wanted it. They seem committed to letting him call plays. But we know in the back of our heads, if things don't go perfectly, Ryan Day will get involved and touched on this offense. It is still his baby. Defensive coordinator changes over as well. Jim Knowles, he heads to Penn State, somewhat of a head scratcher that occurred. But Matt Patricia comes in, and that is an odd pairing at this point. We've really only seen him in the NFL, so it's kind of an outside the box move. But he's going to keep a 4-2-5 base set that they had, so they don't need to adjust personnel, and he's really going to adjust his scheme to fit that personnel so that they can work within it. We know he's a good mind, so I think that'll be an interesting play, though, how that plays out. Quarterback-wise, Will Howard was exactly what they hoped he would be and needed last season to take them all the way to the national championship, as he was a leader of men, and they had a ton of grown men on that roster. He put up 4,000 passing yards while accounting for 42 total touchdowns prior to him heading off to the NFL. In is going to step highly rated prospect Julian Sayin. He's going to get the opportunity to play now after watching and learning from the veteran Howard on how to take care of things, but he's very green after barely seeing the field last season. He has a quick release, a nice accuracy on him. He doesn't have the strongest arm, although it is better than what Howard had. So that's going to mean that they shouldn't, from a physical tools, have any drop-off, if at all, from Howard. It's just the leadership aspects. The questions for saying for me are, how is his slight frame going to hold up until he puts on some weight? And does he feel comfortable yet to take control and be the leader of this offense and the team? Running back wise, they lose Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson to the NFL, and that takes away over 2,000 yards rushing, 24 touchdowns. They were the best tandem in college football, to no one's surprise, and they leave behind huge shoes to fill. James Peoples is going to be the projected starter after he got limited work last season behind those two superstars. He's going to combine with transfer C.J. Donaldson, who comes over from West Virginia, to form their own dynamic duo. Donaldson is capable of being an absolute workhorse. He's 6'2", 237. He can keep others fresh while grinding out yards between the tackles with Peoples working off the edge. He came into West Virginia as a tight end before converting to a running back. He's been good. He can handle a 30-carry outing, no problem at all, and they should really lean on him, specifically in any game that they feel comfortable. Bo Jackson, not that Bo Jackson, but he's scary good too. 4-star true freshman. He's going to get his feet wet in that number 3 role that Peoples had last season, with the chance of really making an impact, especially if anybody goes down. The goal really for me is for him to get ready to be a bigger part of that rotation come next year when Donaldson's gone. It's a clear downgrade from what they had last season, but still a strong unit in the grand scheme of things. Pass catching wise, Emeka Egbuka is going to leave for the NFL after becoming the school's all-time leader in receptions. And a few depth pieces depart as well, going to other places to find playing time. But there is nothing to worry about here. Jeremiah Smith is an absolute stud and quite possibly the best wide receiver we have ever seen in college football. Not right now, but ever. He's the rare exception of a player that was capable of going from high school to the NFL. I bet you could name on one hand the guys who are capable of doing that, Jadeveon Clowney being one of them. Smith has the entire package. He's still very humble, though, and believes that he can get better and improve in all facets of his game. He's coming off a season where he had 76 catches, 1,300 yards, 15 touchdowns as a freshman, and there is no reason to think that he will not be the best wide receiver to ever play at Ohio State, possibly in all of college football when he is done. Carnell Tate's going to remain as the wide receiver 2 on the outside role that saw him produce 52 catches, over 700 yards, and 4 touchdowns last season. He stepped up big in games where coverage was rolled to Smith or Egbuka, and he did a great job when he was needed. I expect him to expand upon those numbers as teams continue to try to take Smith away, opening up more opportunities for Tate to take advantage. The expectation is for former top recruit Brandon Ennis to take over that Egbuka role in the slot, but Jeremiah Smith is going to be moved all over the field and play inside some as well to create better matchups for him. Ennis should really wind up with the third or fourth most catches on the team. Mylan Graham, he looked really good in the spring. He's the next man up at wide receiver if anybody goes down in front of him. He will show flashes in those limited opportunities he might have, especially when some of those top three need a breather. G. Scott really played an unheralded role at tight end last year in that run, and he was a good enough blocker and someone who could make plays when called upon, which he was called upon late in the season to show up big, and he did. With him gone, though, they brought in Max Clare from Purdue. He was the top target on an awful team, and teams still had a hard time stopping him. He was really the only guy catching passes. He's a weapon, really, who can stretch the field and create mismatches. I really like him running a seam route, clear with the attention that's going to be paid to the wideouts. He should really battle Ennis for that third spot in receptions. Along the offensive line, the line was battered and bruised throughout last season, and it was a big concern heading into the playoffs, losing a number of guys for large periods of time due to injury. That ended up being a blessing for this year, as these guys are returning now, and they gained a ton of experience, which was not expected heading into the last year. They looked really good in the spring. They're excited to be a strength. They're expected to be a strength of this roster overall. Ethan Onua'i, he was an underrated pickup in the transfer portal from Rice to play left tackle. Austin Seierveld, he's going to move from a guard spot to right tackle, giving them a pair of good bookends to go with their returning strength up the middle on this line. Defensive line-wise, last year the front four went 7 deep, and everyone played at an extremely high level after they kind of came back for their last dance. The experience across the board is a bit of a concern, but the talent never is at this level of a program, as they just kind of replenish with a constant stream of 4- and 5-star talent all the way across. Off the edge, Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry are going to need to replace two massive figures in JTT and Jack Sawyer, who combined for 21.5 sacks a year ago. The odds of that happening are slim to none. And up the middle, there's bigger concerns. Quite possibly the biggest concern on this entire roster is the middle of this defensive line. The projected starters are Caden McDonald at nose, Edric Houston in the 3 technique. They were both backups last year, and Houston was a former defensive end that they bulked up, and they're now really going to rely upon in that 3 tech to be able to get some push up the middle. After those two, though, there is a ton of issues, and they are very thin at the moment at the defensive tackle spots. The staff likes to rotate these spots, so they're going to need 1 or 2 of these youngsters and backups to step up and seize an opportunity there. Linebacker-wise, Cody Simon was a leader in the room. He's going to be missed, but they backed up the Brinks truck to keep Sonny Styles, and they really like Arvell Reese and Peyton Pierce. Pierce really came on strong in the spring. James Laurinaitis kind of said that he's a natural mic and can be a strong contributor. You got to believe in Laurinaitis when he talks, that's for sure. And they add in C.J. Hicks, bringing in Bo Atkinson from North Carolina, and I think this is a strong, deep unit for the Buckeyes. Due to that, though, I think we're going to see more 3 linebacker sets, possibly even some 3-3-5 defense due to all the talent on the second and third levels of Patricia being able to kind of mix and match there and try to get some exotic pressures. Defensive back-wise, losing Lathan Ransom, Jordan Hancock, it kind of is what it is. It's something that they're used to. But the conversation has to start with Caleb Downs. He's basically the Jeremiah Smith of defensive backs in college football. Downs is an absolute monster who can make an impact all over the field, as he's extremely instinctual playing deep or in the box. He plays big and he runs like the wind. It means he can win at all levels and just be a dominant force all over the field, whatever you need him to do. Jalen McClain's going to pair with him at safety. Jermaine Matthews, Davison Igbenuson, they're going to again pair together at corner. Igbenuson, he had too many penalties for me a year ago, and really his draft stock took a hit from it. I think he could jump up draft boards with a better showing as he continues to refine his game. The staff really likes what they have behind them, though. Aaron Scott, Devin Sanchez. Sanchez, 5-star true freshman. He's got a similar build to Igbinosun as a long, lanky corner who will be an impact player in the future. I think he's one to watch out for sure. You can expect Lorenzo Styles to take over that hybrid slot corner safety role, basically a nickel. And they're going to face some tough passing offenses throughout the season. They're going to need these guys to play well, and I really think they will. I think that Igbinosun learned a lot last year. Matthews played pretty well. So it'll be fun to watch these guys on the back end. Schedule and outlook for this season. There's a boatload of turnover on this team, which is to be expected coming off such a successful season where there was a ton of guys who returned just to reach the mountaintop before going to the NFL, and they accomplished that goal. This is nothing new for a program of this stature, and depth is something they will always have in spades with a next man up mentality, which we saw throughout last season, specifically with the offensive line. Although they do break in a new quarterback, they could lean on the pass more with the downgrade in the running back room, combined with the talent they have possessed on the outside, and Brian Hartline being a receivers coach will probably want to lean on the pass a hair more. The defense has more depth issues than the offense does, but the top end is still very talented, even with breaking in 8 new starters. It's likely with Patricia that we see fewer base fronts and more oddball stuff, specifically with the 3 linebackers on the field, since they do like those guys a lot. Texas is a tough opening game. The Arch Manning era versus the Julian Sayin era. Who comes out on top? I think Texas has enough coming back that they just have a slight advantage, even in the shoe, to take home that win. It'll be a little bit of a rough start today there. Grambling win, Ohio win at Washington. This is a tricky spot, and I'm going to continue to say this in every preview. You know, they're my dark horse for this season. I think they could put it all together with Jed Fish, with DeMond Williams, Denzel Boston. They have a really quality roster. I will lean win. I think you win on the road here, but Washington is one that you're going to want to keep your eyes on as a tough matchup for a number of teams. Minnesota win at Illinois. Another tricky spot. I will lean win again, but I do think it's a tricky spot, and that team is poised to make a run, and they are deep and experienced. At Wisconsin, win. Penn State, I'll lean loss, but Aller really needs to play big, and we haven't seen that. So they're primed to make their run, right? They're doing what Ohio State did a year ago at Penn State, where a lot of guys came back for that last dance. It really would have played out if Abdul Carter was there, but Aller needs to step up. Aller needs to make plays. I think he can, and I think he will in year 2 of that Kotelnicki system. So they win that game. At Purdue, win. UCLA, win. Rutgers, win. And then the game we're all waiting for, at Michigan. I think Ryan Day finally gets the monkey off his back, and they win this game. It took he needed that national title coming off of that Michigan loss. So I think he finally takes down Michigan this year. Not as good of depth this year on this roster. Combined with that tricky schedule, make it unfair. You do miss Oregon, so that's a help. Unfair to expect similar results to the juggernaut that they built last season. I think 8 wins would be disappointing, but as long as you beat Michigan, that's gonna be something you could live with, because beating Michigan is priority 1 for this entire season after that national title a year ago. I really do expect 9 to 10 wins as the more likely result with a win over Michigan, and success for this team is really going to be just to, once again, beat Michigan first and foremost, then be in the playoffs with a chance to repeat.